I don't know if you know, but I've probably been working for 20 plus years, and 10 years of my life I've built bootstrap businesses, right? A little known fact about me that I've also built profitable businesses. I've also built businesses that were bootstrapped. And I honestly did not know what the word CAC meant till I launched Free Charge and got funded. I did not know the word CAC, customer acquisition cost. What does it mean? And I'm sure it must be similar for you in many ways, that where you did not really know a lot of these industry terminologies. And I believe sometimes it is the vocabulary that we learn that we start mimicking in some ways, right? What if you'd never heard the word CAC? You would never even think about spending and spending money to acquire customers. So, Nitin, first question to you is that what, according to you, is the key difference between funded and non-funded startups? And should people get funded? Should it be bootstrapped only? What is the meta observation that you have between those two categories?
Yeah. Firstly, Kunal, thanks for having me on this. No, see, the thing is, there are people who think, I'm a big proponent of saying you should keep this bootstrapped if you can. But I'm not against VC funding. I mean, a lot of, there are people who say that I'm somehow against VC funding. Just like a bunch of disclaimers here, right? So firstly, I actively invest in the markets, in the sense I invest in startups, etc. So, if I didn't believe that VC funded startups can do well, I wouldn't be doing that, right? Secondly, there's almost like asking, the question is, do you want to become a leg spinner, off spinner, batsman, wicket keeper? Like, you need to do what is right for you and where you think you can build your edge as a business, right? So this whole funding, bootstrapping, etc. I mean, I think it's, I have a backstory to this, right? Because in my previous avatar, I used to manage people's money. This was between 2005 to 2008-9, and I hated the obligation that money brought on the table, right? This whole obligation of having to pick up a phone call, having to answer why you are taking whatever decisions you're taking, right? And so when Zerodha started, we were forced to kind of go out and bootstrap this, right? But then once the money's, people started offering money, and at that point, I kind of remembered my past, and I said, do I really want to be in this position where I have to, constantly keep justifying or keep building a consensus before taking decisions, right? And so, yeah, so what I think is that, firstly, I think businesses can be built in multiple ways. There is no one right way. I think I think what is not right is to copy paste someone else, right? Just because I'm bootstrapping, so someone's like, should I, if you're running an e-commerce business where, you can't bootstrap, unfortunately, right? As in, you're going to burn out before anything else happens. So, and thirdly, third disclaimer is when you invited, you said you're having a party called CRED, right? So, and you said, I'm raising $30 million for this party, and that people are paying $30 million to enter this party even before it started. I was very curious to know what is this party about, and so I mean, that small. Firstly, thanks for taking that small little check from me. So when you started, so
I really hope that it's a good investment. Probably one of the better ones that you've made, and hopefully it beats the returns that you've made so far.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I just saw this article, of how much UPI, the 3,000 crores. I'm guessing, if it's UPI is 3,000 overall, maybe 5,000 crores of payments have happened. People have actually paid credit cards on CRED, and that's incredible. If you've been able to get to a place where, I know there are a lot of naysayers and people who kind of question what you do as a business, but if 5,000 crores of payments was done on CRED, I mean, that's the proof lies in the pudding. So I think congrats on getting till here. So.
Oh, thanks, Nithin. I think it's a good way of kind of describing it, that there are no right pathways to get there. As long as you're doing a good job and you're being original and creative in what you do, it's all good. And people may find different opportunities and different paths of doing that. I believe funded startups create a sort of some kind of a fuel to accelerate a chemical reaction, right? It is not guaranteed that the rocket will get to the space or not, but it definitely accelerates a chemical reaction in some ways, right? And gives you that fuel to really accelerate. I don't think CRED would have got to the scale it has got to, and we are going to turn 2 years in a month from now. To get to the scale was possible without the kind of capital support that we got initially. And it is very similar to if you think about Geo, right? Like a lot of people were naysayers about Geo when they launched. We forget that they gave free data to the whole country, hundreds of millions of customers for free, right? And we know what happened after that, and it turned into this huge machinery that has become right now. But the view still remains is that Nitin, that a lot of times we also have the mindset of not understanding how capitalism works, right? We do not understand the role of capital. We don't understand the role of giving returns to the investors. My biggest problem is celebration of funding, right? I see so many times they put a picture of the founder saying that, oh, raises this much money, raises that much money. And it creates this false loop for people to achieve that, oh, all my success is a function of how much money I raise, right? But if you look at historically, like you look at all the publicly listed companies, a lot of these founders probably had no capital to support them. A lot of them have built companies just the way you have. In fact, the new version is what I'm building. The always ongoing version was the one that you built, right? Like always bootstrap, always struggle, taking bank loans, struggling, having mortgaging your own house to support businesses. That's how businesses were always built. But let me ask a different question. In India, sometimes a lot of people believe that the amount of capital is not commensurate to the returns that one can make over here. What is your view for that compared for tech companies, right? Do you believe that we are overcapitalized for the market potential that we have?
Yeah. So firstly, the previous question, let me complete that. There's an angle to this. See, the thing is, I think, I look at business. I played sports through my life. Okay, and I look at business as almost like playing a sport, right? And you need to do stuff that's going to give you an edge, right? As in, if I'm big and tall, maybe I should go play basketball and not do gymnastics, right? And so the same way when we started the business and we started seeing some traction, and I started realizing how our competition has to work, I realized that one of the biggest edge we have as a business is how nimble we are, and that nimbleness came because of the organizational structure, right? As in the fact that we didn't have to sit down and decision making was very fast. Also, what we realized is that we didn't. So until date, not a single person at Zerodha has a revenue target, right? So we have never chased revenue or growth. It's never been. We've never started a year saying we need to get to this many customers, or we need to get this much revenue. So we said, to get there, you need to go build your product. You need to go, do education initiatives, etc. You can't really say that I can be 1 million customers. As in Feb this year, if you had said, Nithin, there's going to be this thing called COVID, where everyone's going to be working from home, and you're going to go 3x, in terms of, all metrics this year, I would have said, what are you smoking? Right. But the thing is, when that action happened, we were there at right place, right time, and we had the right product, we had all right kind of initiatives, right? So yeah, so personally, I think chasing down revenues, chasing down growth is an extremely incredible task, tough task. A lot of people come to me and say, Nithin, what is your 5-year plan, right? And I'm like, what do you think will happen to the industry? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow morning. Imagine there's something else, say some other COVID type of thing, right? And so there is, so when there are so many uncertainties, how do you really call, such kind of revenue? I mean, that's my view, right? But that's my worldview, and it doesn't mean that you cannot survive on this planet with a different worldview, right? As in, you can be that person who can have a target and go chase it down. I mean, it essentially comes down to individuals, right? But coming back to India, I think like one problem with this country is that we are a poor country, right? As in, there is no two ways about it. I think like what 750,000 Indian families are more than $1 million, right? As in, we are that's 7.5 lakhs out of 130 crores, right? As in, now the good thing about this bootstrapping, right? What I've realized is I get the freedom to say what I think it is, right? I don't have to come here and pretend that India is a big market, right? Now I know that every competitor of mine, will be selling some, somehow India will get 20 crore Indians will invest in the markets. I'm like, dude, from where will 20 crore Indians come, right? As in, like, if 5 crore Indians are filing income tax returns, right? 2 crore Indians are paying income tax, or 2.5 crore Indians, right? As in, how will 20 crore Indians come and invest in the markets? As in, what are they going to invest in, right? As in, and that's the thing I think I enjoy the most of not raising funds, right? I can be a realist. I don't have to come and pretend that all of this is happening. And one of the things that I have realized with a lot of my peers is that in this whole saying this story that India is such a big market, India is such a big market, they end up believing there is actually a big market, right? And you're just you're just telling it yourself, and eventually their team believes it, their investors believes it, right? And everyone's then chasing this growth, which is never really going to ever happen, right, in this country. And I mean, it can happen when we somehow, as a country, find ways to put money in the hands of our people, right? And that's a much bigger problem to solve than what me, you, and all are solving, right? As in, the real problem in this country to solve is how do you get more money in the hands of people? How do you increase the per capita GDP and all of that, right? So I think, coming back to your question, I think in terms of revenue generation, I think the opportunity is just in the top 1-2 crore Indians, right? And I know that you agree on it. That's why you're building CRED. I mean, of course, you can go get users. You can get a lot of users. You can give free accounts, and people will look at stock prices on your platform. But you can really generate money, I think, just from the top 1-2 crore Indians, because there isn't really money outside that. And I mean, we all, whoever privileged few have to find ways to grow that audience. So that's how I look at it.
Nithin, it's funny. 3-4 years ago, I had tweeted about how Bangladesh is going to overtake India on per capita income, and for most people, it is shocking to understand this because Bangladesh is considered to be a conservative nation where we are used to thinking that Bangladeshis come to India to find work, right? But it's actually the other way around. The per capita income of that country is just skyrocketing. And one interesting fact that was actually quite shocking for me, that considering it's a conservative nation, close to 70% of urban Bangladeshi women work and have independent income. That number is less than 10% in India. Right. In fact, I was recently, looking at data again, and I found out that Pakistan has more urban women working than India. And we don't understand that per capita income is a function of everybody contributing to the income generation capability and having financial independence. And it's just shocking that, my belief is that Bangladesh is going to continue to skyrocket because of this one compounding factor of both the genders working and contributing to the workforce. And people say, oh, but there are no jobs for women. Why should I say it doesn't work that way? If 2 skilled people work, they employ 10 unskilled people, and that's how jobs get created, right? So if somebody is MBA and chooses to be at home, you've taken a skilled labor person and put them in an unskilled kind of an environment, which a lot of the work that the person is doing could be done with somebody more unskilled, and therefore these 10 jobs are not created. And it is quite shocking. The biggest shock for me when I started CRED was to find out that Bollywood, which is as massy as it gets 80-85% of revenue only from multiplexes. And this is obviously pre-COVID, but this is the reality, that the revenue does not come from these so-called 100 million customers that we are talking about. They don't exist. It comes from these 2,000 screens that continues to generate most of the revenue. And therefore, the multiplexes are getting sofas and more expensive tickets because they are the ones who can afford to pay more. Switching gears on product and investors, Nithin, you built a company which was heavily regulated, has all these big banks and old institutions running this business for many, many years, has a problem of mistrust and not trusting people with money. how did you manage to navigate these challenges in doing what you did? Because nobody knew about Zero that, and nobody knows. Nithin Kamath does not come with a lot of pedigree and a celebrity status before. I was curious to know, how did you go about without capital to create the cult that you created?
Well, see, the thing is, if I had to do this again now in 2020, I don't think it's possible, right? So, firstly, I give a lot of credit to being at the right place, right time. So when we started Zerodha, in 2010, it was probably one of the worst times to start a broking business. Coming on the back of financial crisis. Funnily, I had this conversation yesterday of someone who wanted to start a large gym in Bangalore. Right. And my first reaction was, dude, what are you smoking? As in, why would you start a gym now? Right. As in, but then I had this flashback saying, dude, this is exactly what every person was telling me back in 2010, that this is like the worst time to go start a broking business. Right. But what a lot of people don't know about Zerodha, right, is that I don't think Zerodha is a 10-year journey. I started trading the markets in 96, 97. Right. So and the day I started trading is, I think, when the business really started, right? And I've always had this whole kida of trying to share knowledge. So I used to learn, I used to be part of large communities, sharing and talking about stock markets, etc. Right? So almost for like 10, 12, 13 years, the axe was sharpened. Right. This wasn't like, this is not like an idea, we picked up in a coffee shop and said, let's go do it. This was a real problem that we were facing for 12 years. And that's what we were trying to solve for. Right. And what I, like one of those quotes that I really believe in today's world is that, today's world is about fast beating the slow and not the big beating the small. Right. And I realized that edge as soon as we started doing the business, because, for the first 3 years, between 2010 to 2013, every competitor of mine was saying, dude, what are you doing? Right? As in, why are you even trying this business model? This is never going to fly. But I think, like I've said this before, it's a very thin line between passion and foolishness. You kind of, it works out, you're passionate. If it doesn't, they call you foolish, right? As in, it's a very thin line, So, and for those, the first 3 years the problem we were trying to solve was a very simple problem, right? Which is, there were very active day traders and futures and options traders like me or my younger brother. And we said, can we reduce the cost for them? And can we build a transparent pricing model? And we were the only ones doing it for those first 3 years, right? So, and every single person out there didn't acknowledge that a business like this, and our competitor didn't acknowledge a business like this can potentially become big tomorrow. That gave us, see, in this business, like you said, right, credibility is extremely important. And what I've realized is there are two ways to garner credibility, right? One is, like you can go spend $100 million on advertisement, and people will believe, because if you keep reinforcing through advertisement that you're a large brand and you're a large brand, people will believe it, right? At that point of time, we didn't really have that money, right? So we had to find another way to go and do this, right? And what we realized is that, what I've always known about our business is, people don't don't open trading account because of an advertisement, right? Trading, it's not like a mobile phone that you wake up one day morning and say, I want to buy a mobile phone. It doesn't work like that, right? You usually, in this business, right, there's always an enabler, right? You invest in the market, so you tell your friend, boss, you know what, I made money in this stock. So that friend says, hey, how do I do this? And you say, why don't you open an account? I'll teach you. And then he says, where do I open an account? And right, so it all comes down to that, right? So now, in our business, influencers, the real people, are the most important piece here, right? And so we said, can we kind of do whatever we think is right for those customers of ours? The first 10,000 customers were the toughest to get to, right? For every business. And it is even more tougher in a business of money, because this customer, we are a custodian of customers' assets. Like, think of us as a bank account, right? As in, people keep their hard-earned money and securities with us. So they will do it only if they trust you, right? And so to garner the trust, the first 2-3 years, we slogged out quite a bit. And the way we did it was being transparent as a business. I started blogging. I was participating in a lot of these online communities. Stuff that had never happened in India. You had never had a broker, or forget broker. Any guy with a financial services firm his head on the table and come out in the open and talk about stuff, right? And the reason we could talk about stuff, which is actually the big disruption we brought in that no one ever really acknowledges, was just a business model, which was being, like offering one deal for all our customers, right? The big problem, I think, in financial services firms is every customer gets a different deal, right? Your net worth is 1 crore, I'll give you this. Your net worth is 10 crores, I'll give you this. You generate me this much revenue, I'll give you this, right? But every time you add a new rule, you're just complicating the business, right? And you're forcing yourself to be opaque, right? Because if I have 3 different rules for 3 different customers, I can never come out like this in the open and talk about it, right? And so I understood then that that's the leverage we have on our competitors, right? Which is we can be transparent, and they can't be, and we use that leverage to come out and just keep writing stuff, keep blogging, keep participating everywhere. And it was not a quick, it didn't happen overnight. It took us 3-4 years before people started acknowledging us. And then Kailash happened in 2013-14, K, who heads our tech, right? And then he came in and built, and the tech team built an amazing product. So in 2015, we suddenly had this great product. And then we also had this 5 years of building credibility, right? So when someone looks at Zerodha, by that time we had a 5-year credible kind of a business, right? And then demonetization happened, which was very important because onboarding the customer was the biggest pain point. And then it became online because of Aadhaar and all of that. So right place, right time, that having your own in-house product, and having the leverage of just suddenly being able to onboard customers. And during this journey, I think the first few years, if someone had come, offered me money, I would have probably taken it, right? Because I wasn't really sure what I was doing. We were just experimenting and all of that, right? But thankfully, in hindsight, no one came and offered. So that kind of worked out well, for us. But I think once I kind of knew the edge we have on our competition, which is being nimble, having that regulatory, because in a regulated business, you need to have a regulatory foresight, right? The way you predict how a business can be in 5 years, you also need to be able to predict what regulations will be in 5 years. Because if you can predict that what regulations will be in 5 years, you can build all products towards that regulation, right? And that somewhere in this journey, that regulation will change. If it changes, you're going to suddenly, go step 1 to step 2 really fast, right? And that's what we've done through the journey of Zerodha, is that we've always predicted what regulations can be in the future, and we've built the business like that. And every time that regulation came and competitor has been caught napping, we have suddenly gained like a large distance on our competition, right? So I think I keep talking about this. I think one of the reasons why this is work, like I said earlier, right? You need to have some kind of an edge. You need to either have deep pockets or you need to have some kind of a core competency, right? Deep pockets not necessarily always buys you core competency, right? And this business of ours is very technical. It isn't something, it isn't an easy business. You need to have the understanding. In our business, risk is more important than everything. You could make money for 3 years, 4 years in a row, and you could blow it all up on one day, right? So you need to make sure that you don't do anything compromising on that risk, because you can, no point running a business if one day you're going to give it all up, right? So I think all of those understandings eventually has helped us get here. But I think not raising funds has given us all those, we've actually leveraged that to do a bunch of things which our funded funds can't do, right? And that's helped the business quite a bit.
So Nithin, I think one interesting thing that you talked about is being right place at the right time. But it seems like you have been fairly prepared that you get lucky more often, right? If I have to summarize it from that perspective, that you anticipated how regulation is going to move. Actually, let me switch gears and go into more meta direction and ask you a simple question: how to take good decisions?
Right. Yeah, I think okay, so this is where not being funded helps, right?
My question is more meta in life. Like,
No,
how
no, yeah,
you have been a good investor.
yeah.
You've been a trader from, I don't know, from teenage. So all it seems like your life is a series of many good decisions, right? So you clearly understand how to take good decisions. How to take good decisions, Nithin.
Yeah, no, no, I mean, it is a series of good decisions over the last 10, 12 years. Before that, there was a lot of volatility in life, right? So I think some of the learnings I've been able to kind of bring into my trading, and then eventually also into the business of, of running a business. So I think, see, firstly, the way, when I have to decide on something, there are a few things, right? As in which I don't say it's a bullet point. I've made a list somewhere, but I know that mentally I'm kind of running through this. The first most important thing is that, if something went wrong with that decision, will it bother me, right? As in, like, am I taking such a big risk that I'll not be able to sleep tomorrow, or can I really make peace with that worst case outcome of the decision, right? If I can make peace with it, I do it. If not, I don't do it, right? I mean, that's as simple as it. Like, today when I'm investing in startups, when I'm investing, I'm saying, dude, this is a write-off, right? As in, am I okay with this being a write-off, right? And if I'm okay with it, I'll do it. If not, I won't do it, right? So now what happens is, as soon as you put yourself in that zone where you're prepared for the worst case outcome, I've realized that I take much smarter decisions later on, right? All my other follow-through decisions, everything seems like a bonus because you're already kind of mentally prepared for the worst case outcome, right? And second thing is, I think I this being in right place, right time, I think the odds of getting lucky increases if people who want you to get lucky in life become more, right? If more people want you to get lucky, your odds of kind of getting lucky increases, right? It's this whole good karma, bad karma stuff, right? As in, it's just you do good, as much good, and the odds of good happening back to you increases. And that I'm like a full-time believer, right? So I've always tried to help as many people as possible with no expectation in mind, because as soon as you have some expectation in mind, you'll get disappointed. You won't do it, right? I mean, if you were to ask me, Nithin, can you do it? If I can do it, I'll do it, and with zero expectation, right? And what I realized is, individually it had helped me, but then as a business, when we started following this, right, this organic growth suddenly started taking this exponential kind of benefit when our customers got to know that, what, this business does stuff which is right for the customer, right? Like, just to give you an example, right? As in, we haven't tried to sell anything to a customer, right? And that's been because I think selling more is actually, while it might be good for the business, it may not be really good for the customer, right? Like, should I sell like I said, I can take these decisions. Like I said, some of these will probably be counterintuitive to people. Should I sell, say, credit cards to my customer, right? I have all the data of theirs, right? Now, I personally believe that most people who will take credit or will take loans or whatever will kind of screw up with it, because I've seen people around me, as in, out of 10 people, maybe.
I run a business where I see this day in and day out.
Yeah, so I mean, so yeah, during the journey, so I think, me and everyone else who are part of the core team, we've always thought we need to do what is right for the customer. If it is right for the customer, it's eventually right for the business, right? In shorter terms, you might lose out on some revenue opportunities, etc. But longer term, if customers know that you're doing what is right, you can actually grow organically. You'll get so much more momentum behind it. So every decision that's been taken at Zerodha from the day we've started has been always that, dude, is this right for the customer? If it is right, we'll go build it. If it's not right, I mean, even if it generates a lot of revenue, no point doing it, right? Because it's going to be just short term. And I think those kind of decisions we could take, because there is no one to go say, I have to go show a revenue growth. Right? There is no, there's no debt in the business. We haven't raised, borrowed money ever. We haven't raised any capital ever, right? So there is no capital that needs to be serviced. Right? There is no, there's no, loan interest to be paid, or there is no investor whose returns I need to somehow figure by growing fast, right? So I think that, has helped us as well, so that kind of, thinking of doing what is right for the customer. I mean, a lot of people say it, but actually doing it is very different than saying it,
It makes so much sense. I remember we sent a note to everybody when RBI announced the moratorium on credit card bill payments that you can pay it later. With and we thought that it's important to inform the customer that interest is not waived off for this period of time. The moratorium is not good for you. And there was a lot of discussion internally in the team that, hey, should we go out of the way and say that the RBI moratorium is not good for you with the detail, but if it's right for the customer, even if 5 people noticed it, it will eventually help the business, right? That if you do the right thing for the customer, eventually it will all play out well. And I think it's a fair point to make. On that note, I'm curious to know about one thing, Nithin. And I'll come from a personal anecdote. I've every time I met you, I love the cars you have. I get excited. I'm like, dude, this is so cool. And I know that you have a habit of listening to podcasts in your car, and you like to drive your own car. And I have told you multiple times I'm going to buy a good car. And you know what I did? I recently bought a Vespa scooter. So I'm going in the opposite direction. So I'm curious to know, what is your relationship with money? What is Nithin Kamath's relationship with money? What do you think money is for you?
I mean, it's been different things at different points of time, So when I actually started, this whole journey, right? I had this rupee number. I had set 5 crores. I had this big, like a poster saying 5 crores, and and then I'd said what I'll do with that 5 crores. And it was in my wardrobe. It was essentially saying, if I get to 5 crores, I'll go buy a shack in Goa. I love music, so there'll be a band playing. I'll enjoy music, host people, have good food, play some football on the beach, and that was my that was my rupee thing. Then 5 crore happened. Then I realized, dude, this, you can't really stop at this. This rupee number really means nothing. Then I had ambitions. I had these material goals in my mind. I had watches, I had house, I had I had cars. So everything. I actually had these things written down, saying this is what I need to get. Right. Once I have enough money, and I went and got it. But then I realized that it means nothing, right? There is always going to be a better watch. There's always going to be bigger cars, and a lot of a lot of rich folks say that money is not important, but you can only say it once you have the money. You can't say it without the money, right? As in, this whole realization that money is not important can only happen once you have the money, right? As in, but I think over the last 3-4 years, we've been very successful as a business, and we've gotten to a point where I know that my lifestyle for the rest of my life is covered. As in, I don't really have to get up tomorrow morning and work, right? And now money means essentially nothing. So it's kind of lost all the value today, because I know that incrementally making more money doesn't really mean that I'm going to go do something different than what I'm already doing in my life, right? As in, I don't have ambitions to buy a yacht or a plane and stuff like that. It's I'm kind of that over that phase. If you were to ask me 10 years back, Nithin, if there was an opportunity to buy a private jet, would you do it? I would have said, yeah, I would do it. But today I'm like, it doesn't excite me anymore, right? So, but today I think one of the things that I've realized is that I don't know, I might sound anti-capitalist by saying this, and of all people, a stockbroker saying stuff like this might sound weird, but I think one of the reasons the planet is where it is today in terms of climate change, or I think we're all pushing it beyond its brink, right? Is because of this constant need to buy more, right? Which is like this whole need that I want to keep, I want a phone, I want to buy one more new phone every time there's a new version of it, and this constant being wired to go spend money, right? And I think this is going to ruin our planet, and it's already ruined quite a bit. And I think what the world needs right now is people who are conscious that excessive consumerism is killing the planet, right? And so there is no point, sitting earning money if in 20 years from now we can't go out on the street because it's the planet's so warm that you can't walk on the street anymore. Right. And so now today, now that I know that I'm one of the few people who think like this, so for me, the other thing is I have that freedom of money today to be able to go and put to work and see if somehow we can do stuff to get people to be conscious about such problems, right? And because I think capitalism is actually ruining the world, the planet, right? And excessive consumerism, that branch of capitalism, which always gets people to spend money, is responsible for this. And so today, money for me is like, having the freedom to go support startups working on climate change, or one of those passionate projects that I have right now is to go create as many forests as possible, right? As in, on thousands of acres of land, right? So I can do it today because there's money. So money today is freedom for me. So.
Interesting. Switching to a different thing about how you personally compound. I have a story that once I was supposed to meet you for breakfast, and you texted me that, hey, I'll be there in 15 minutes. You're running 15 minutes late, and I see you in the car in the corner parked, and I thought you were on a call when you came and told me that, hey, I was actually finishing this podcast and this interesting chapter that I was at. And that was quite fascinating, that how you keep up. And you were actually reading about history. And I think it was Hitler's book that you were reading about how Hitler kind of came into power and what he's doing. I'm curious to know, what is the way you personally stay sharp? How do you keep understanding the world? And how do you detect patterns? Like, what is your personal ritual to do that?
Yeah, no, I mean, see, I'm to be brutally honest, I started reading only 3 years back. Okay. And before that, all my reading was just around stock markets. As in, if I read any book, it was probably how to trade better. Right. So all my life lessons is actually from trading the markets and not really reading any books. It's trading, losing money, making money, whatever. Right. As in, all those life experiences has been the teacher. I think personally, what I've realized is that, I've always tried to learn something new. I play a bunch of instruments. I'm not a master in none, right? I play a bunch of sports. I've learned magic. I love poker. So you can essentially, there are probably 30 or 40 different interests. And what I've realized is, every time I've tried to learn something new, you get sharper. And that's that's one thing that I keep telling everyone that I meet, saying that, dude, you have to constantly learn something new. Just reading a book isn't enough, right? As in, you have to, reading a book is a very comfortable thing, as in, just trying to learn a new skill, go learn a language, for example, right? Or is just you're pushing your brain beyond your, boundaries that are set. But I think once I got introduced to Audible 2-3 years back, I probably then got to know the reason why I never felt like reading a book, because I couldn't open a book and concentrate. As in, I just used to switch off. And maybe that's got to do with, maybe some kind of a stigma from school. I was a horrible student. I was probably the last in every class from the time I was in 4th standard, right? And maybe that, that all the time, the constant pressure or push to saying, read, right? And I was like, books never appealed to me. And from the time I started on Audible and listening to all these podcasts, then I suddenly got exposed to this whole, what people think, right? As in, I've heard a bunch of your podcasts, right? As in, the fact that now I'm thinking, what, these were my life lessons, and this is what I thought life is, and now I'm actually, listening to all of this. I mean, it's the last 3 years has been quite crazy, actually. I've been questioning a lot of things that I've been.
What you're saying, I recently learned about this thing about mental associations, that how brain creates everything in association. So, for example, if book has been associated with bad memories, it's going to continue to be that way. In fact, a lot of times I've learned this interesting thing, saying that don't take your phone to bed, because it will start associating bed with excitement instead of relaxation and sleep. Right? And therefore, we can't sleep on bed anymore, because the bed has become a place where we take our phone and enjoy Instagram and YouTube and get super excited with it. And therefore, association creates this massive problem. But on the learning front, it's actually quite interesting. I was a terrible student as well. I don't think I've ever ranked well in life, but or won any awards in life for that matter. The thing that was interesting is that because I was terrible at studies, I used to just spend my time reading comics, right? And I think the reading thing came from, so I learned Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, I self-learned that because I should just take comics of these things, and I needed to know concept word because it's interesting content, right? So it created this interesting need to like books in some ways, but for me, audio is instant way to go to sleep, right? So I've not heard a single podcast in my life. I've tried to listen to many podcasts in my life. In 2 minutes, I just go to sleep, right? So that's an interesting way that we all learn differently. But staying curious is super important. I'm going to switch to, we have last 15 minutes, back to the topic of funding, startups, and all of that, right? What do you think people who are trying to be entrepreneurs should keep in mind? Because it's become cool to be entrepreneurs, and I kept telling people it's the darkest thing that you do in life to become an entrepreneur, right? It is really, really dark. It looks nice and fancy. You have this all these cool people on Twitter who are saying that it's cool, but it's not cool. It's extremely dark, it's hard, it is extremely painful. It doesn't get better. It doesn't get, oh Nithin, now it is better. Now that you have become this big, it's better. It gets harder and harder and harder. What would you tell younger people who are still in the coolness of entrepreneurship? Like, what are your practical, and I'm not saying we are discouraging them from being entrepreneurs, but what are the practical advice would you give them?
I mean, I can tell you the experience that before you go chop a tree, you need to sharpen the axe, right? And it is a lot of people like young folks that I know, randomly pick up a business idea and say, I want to go build a business around this. Right? If you come up with an idea, go work in an existing industry, right? Spend some time, learn those skills before you actually think of starting up, right? I mean, you wouldn't get up one day and say, I want to become an Olympic long distance runner, right? Like essentially, if someone's starting a business without having no freaking background about the industry, etc., is almost saying the same thing. It's as ridiculous as that, which is, I get up one day and I want to become Olympic. I want to go compete in Olympics from tomorrow, right? As in, can't work. As in, you have to put years together before you can actually get to a place where you can compete. So I think like that's usually my biggest advice to anyone, right? Is that firstly, if you come up with an idea, give it some time, go learn about, see ideas, opportunities keep coming. I don't think there is that one idea that can suddenly make you a billionaire. I don't think stuff like that works, right? As in I think the best guys that I know who've built great businesses are all people who slog their ass for many, many years, if not in the same industry, running different things, building life skills before actually getting into starting a business, right? And so I think that's the first thing. And second thing is, I think loving what you are solving helps as well. Like, for example, in my case, right, as in stock market is the only thing I've done in my life, and I was doing it because I love it. As in I love interacting with traders. I love trading the markets. I love taking risk. I love thinking about risk to reward every time I'm doing something, right? And so Zerodha was just an extension of that, right? As in, it wasn't. So today, like even today, it's 10 years. 3 or 4 months, and even today, every morning I get up, I get as excited as I was, the first day of the business, right? So and that excitement can be around with you only if you like what you're doing, right? I mean, if I was running, say, a restaurant business, I potentially I would be feeling like, get up every morning and like, why should I go to this restaurant today, right? So I think it's about finding what you love to do as well. So these two things, and third thing, like I said, right? I mean, I think it's important that you do what is right for your customer and what is right for your team, right? At every point of time, your business is what your team is, right? As in, I don't think anyone can build a business alone, right? And so finding the right people to, before starting, finding those first few folks who can work with you, build, trust them enough. Only you don't go to a coffee shop, meet, and say, "Well, let's be co-founders and do this stuff." Right? As in,
I've been asked this question so many times that where do I find co-founder? The culture of arranged marriage has ruined us.
Right.
So, co-founder.
Yeah, I mean, because see, the thing is, I've realized that I just tweeted about this, saying the toughest trades in life is actually the profitable ones. If you're a trader, right? The easy ones are actually where you lose money, right? Because when you lose money, No one wants credit, right? We're all wanting to say, dude, let's get out of this trade fast, right? When you make money, right? When you first succeed, that's when it's a problem, right? Because if you're a I mean, who takes what credit, right? Have you actually spoken about this before you starting the business? Did someone suddenly get more credit than someone else? So is that ego coming into play, right? As in, most businesses I know that get into all these complications as soon as a little bit of success comes through, right? And that's because the business was started without making those things very clear, saying who's responsible for what, and without enough trust within the team, people within the team. So I think it's important that if someone's starting up, your first 4 or 5 guys are your foundations. Just spend some time figuring out who these guys are. Spend time, give effort, do put go through a bunch of situations with them, see how they react in these different situations before starting a business. You don't want to start with a bad team. It's almost like a bad marriage. It's just going to ruin your life. So.
Good one. We'll switch to some insights. Talk about some counterintuitive consumer behavior insights you've learned being in the business over 10 years in your own behavior, in consumers' behavior. What are the 2, 3 unusual behavior that you've seen that people continue to do and it just blows your mind?
No, see, the thing is, in the business of trading, it's a well researched thing, right? As in, these biases that people have when they invest in trade, right? And we get to see it day in and day out, right? And I think the biggest reason for people to not make money in the markets is this thing called as disposition bias, which is when if you have a stock which is making money and which is losing money, people instinctively sell what is making money and buy more of what is losing money, right? So that's because it just it's very instinctive, and it's so funny that majority of the people do the same thing, and it's not even that these people don't know that it's a wrong thing they're doing. As in, everyone has a problem. It's just that it's a really big problem in the business of trading and investing, because that kind of bias can make you lose money, right? As in lose, like some of the last year, the most held stocks at Zerodha, was Yes Bank and Tata Motors, the worst performing stocks of the year, right? So essentially people just buying stocks, selling profitable ones, buying more of it as it came down, so that's I think it's kind of weird. And I think what else is weird? I think in our business, people, when they lose, I don't know if it's only related to our business, it's generally in life, is they like to blame someone, right? And in the business of trading and investing, there is this word that is used called they, right? They brought the markets down today and I lost some money. I'm like, dude, who's this they, right? As in, who are these people who brought the Nifty down today because of which I lost money, right? So when you can't ascribe to a person, you actually call it as a they, and there is no they. There is, India is a very deep liquid market today. This is not 90s, right? It's there are multiple players. Even between the large institutions, there are people taking on each other. So there is, if Nifty, which is our broader market, falls down, there is no they there. That's just demand and supply adjusting to wherever it is. So if someone wasn't able to predict it, it's just a flaw in your strategy, right? As in, so I mean, we see, I can keep going on all of these things because in our business there are quite a bit of this.
I'm going to switch to a different world. Can you give me one lesson you've learned from music?
Right.
One lesson you've learned from magic, one lesson you've learned from poker, and one from sport.
Right. Okay. Magic. Okay, now you put me in a tricky spot. Now I have to think about this. Okay. No, sport is a no-brainer. Sport is about just giving it all, because I've always known that I'm not the most talented guy, but I can give more effort than everyone else. And that's my edge. And so every time you put me on on any game, people will tell you, even if I'm playing anyone, right, random people, I'll get super competitive. and I'm giving my best, right? So yeah, so sport was that. Music, my mom was a veena teacher, and so she's been teaching music from the time I was a kid. So so a lot of Carnatic classical at home. Um, and then I have varied music choice. I like Carnatic music. I like Hindustani. I love Pink Floyd. I love trance. And so it's just what I realized is that just having not a fixed genre of music, because I've seen a lot of people will say I'll only listen to Kishore Kumar, or I'll is just it just I think doesn't help you grow intellectually, right? I think one of the things that I've realized with music and appreciating different kind of music is that it helps you kind of get that uh, perspective on life, that all kind of things, as long as it's sounding good, is good. So I don't know if it's a life lesson. I think it's probably going over the top.
I think it is actually. I would recommend this book if you've not read Range by
No,
David.
I've read that. Yeah.
Somebody talks about that how range brings how brain just responds better to range in general. So I think it's interesting that you've had so many varied choices and how it has shaped you in interesting
Right.
ways. But talk about poker and magic.
No, poker is. I think so. I stopped trading the markets when we started with Zerodha. Actively trading because Nikhil, my brother, was a much better trader. I mean, he's a much better trader. So he now. But the thing is, once you're used to this adrenaline rush of decisions being tested very. See, the thing is, in business, right? When we take decisions, the results are very delayed, right? As in, we get to know after. Say I launch this new product, I'll get to know after 6 months if it is good or not, right? And you need to have the patience to wait through to know that, right? And the good thing about trading the stock markets or poker is that your decision, the results are very instant types, right? And that gives you almost a dopamine kind of a rush, right? And that's how I when I stopped trading the markets is when I started playing a little bit of poker. And with poker, it's just reinforcement that the rules to win in life, in trading, in poker are all the same, which is you need to take a bet to win, and if you lose all your chips, you can't bet, right? As in, it's just like every time you're playing. So if you've seen me play poker, right? I'm a grinder. I'm not gonna ever I'm not gonna go mental like you and go on and just because just because you want to see what people's reactions are. I remember that conversation.
And poker is very, very different. I'm doing human experiments and seeing what people are doing. And you've seen me like kind of cause massive amount of discomfort in people just by being myself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're one of those. I mean, there are 2, 3 in this startup circuit who bring a lot of volatility on the table, right? So, but I think poker is that. It's just constant reinforcement that, dude, to win in life and in trading in business, you need to follow these rules. And it's just every weekend if I play a game, I'm just reminded, dude, this is what is required, to do okay in life. Magic, so magic was just time pass types. I mean, in the sense, I got into this phase where I started learning a lot of these card tricks, and I just loved the reaction of people. When you kind of surprise them, right? As in, but then I think this whole card trick fun got lost once all the tricks got exposed on YouTube, right? And then it just lost the charm because everyone would just go Google saying how do I get the answer for this? How did this card trick been executed? So yeah,
But there's an interesting point over here about creating moments of surprise, right? I think one of the big lessons I've had is that all good product people are at heart performance artists. They know how to get an applause from audience, right? So a lot of our leadership over here at CRED have a background in music, poets, singers, musicians. We have all sorts of people over here, and I've seen the combination of high IQ combined with ability to do no performance art and get applause naturally makes them better at creating products. And in fact, I have a thesis, and I've spoken to so many founders. All the founders I know that are good at B2C, I always ask them that, hey, did you have performance art background? And 90% of times they were either doing dramatics in college, singing, dancing, something or the other, where they have figured out how to get applause from a large audience. So it's been a consistent pattern. So magic probably was just an extension of creating surprises in the product that you are, right? But Nithin, this has been good. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm gonna do a wrap, but hopefully we'll catch up soon in person and discuss more insights in person. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having, and best of luck for everyone on CRED.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.